Hey everyone, welcome to this month's Talent Genius Mastermind. We've got John Pike and Wes Madden here, and John, I'll let you take it away.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. Delighted to be with you. Today we have a fantastic guest with us, Wes Madden. Wes hails up in Anchorage, Alaska, and for those of you that don't know much about Wes, let me just give you a couple of quick data points. Not only is his company had 6 consecutive years of 20-plus market share, but Wes is actually in the top 1%, not just in the top 250 in terms of volume, in the entire United States. But last year he ranked number 34, doing over 500 units. So Wes, we're thrilled to have you on board today. We want to learn from you, hear about some of the things that you have been implementing and some of the secret to your success for that type of consistency. And today we're going to talk about leadership, culture, talent. So maybe my first question to you, Wes, is would you mind giving us a little bit of background in terms of some of the dynamics or challenges that you face that might be a little bit different in your market than perhaps some other markets?
Sure. Thanks for the introduction, John. I hope I'm not blushing too much here, but we've got offices in Fairbanks and North Pole, Alaska, and North Pole. It sounds really far north and in the middle of nowhere, and it probably is. We're at the end of the road, so to speak.
Okay.
And I think when I first hired you, I knew I was. I think I always thought that being at the end of the road, talent pool, very shallow. I knew initially that I think the first couple folks that joined the team or that I recruited on the team, unbeknownst to me, were some of the most talented members of our team. So I was very fortunate to really start off out of the gate, even when I didn't know what I was doing, happened into some really great people to build the team. And I think once you and I started working together, we kind of validated that. But no, I mean, we have a lot of time in the winter here to focus on our business. So there's something about being able to commiserate in an austere environment like Alaska. I think that people, they live hard, they work hard, they play hard. There's definitely a certain amount of ruggedness to folks that choose to live here. That being said, I think that you have to provide a culture and an environment, a business environment that retains people in the cold north. Because I'm telling you, it's a common discussion every time winter comes. What's my exit strategy? How am I going to get down to that sandy beach? How am I going to wait? So I have to make sure that I attract top talent and then retain them here. So that I don't lose them. I don't lose salespeople or team members to competitors. I lose them to Alaska. Getting burnt out on the winters. Grass is always greener. In the lower 48 type mentality. So I really have to create that environment that stimulates people and keeps people here, and they need to feel that they're a part of something. So.
Sure. In fact, I just read an article recently that especially today's generation, they're looking to attaching themselves to something where they can make a difference, to not just exist and contribute something as an individual contributor, but it's got to be something that's going towards a bigger whole, right? A bigger entity. And
right.
So not having that feeling is something that's is going to be very difficult in terms of hiring the recent college grad per se. You had mentioned, I think, to me that let's take this a little bit more specific. You had mentioned that you had lost 3 key admin within a very short period of time. So what were those positions, and then what did you do to kind of within 90 days get back up and running? Quickly?
Yeah. It ended up being actually, I think I told you 3, and it ended up being actually 4. I had so from a staff member perspective, I had 2 transaction coordinators. Our listing coordinator, who had been with us for 5-6 years, and then our field coordinator. And this is the guy that goes out and hangs signs and lock boxes and transfers keys and makes deliveries at 40 below. So it's a pretty key piece of the puzzle. But really, that's 4 staff pieces that are vital to our organization, and really that's the value proposition that we offer to our agents. I mean, why join a team? Well, we've got this infrastructure to support you, and boom, there went all my support within a matter of about 60 days. So all that happened at the same time. I was dissolving one of my business entities and moving into our new office, our new beautiful 5,000 square foot office, which we've been working on for a long time. So there were a lot of distractions happening. Culturally, it was a gut check time, for sure. And had we not been, I got to attribute a lot of our ability to recover. I would say right now, and this was maybe 90 days ago, I would say we were going through this. And had we not had a hiring process due to your help, I don't know that we would have made it through this last little bump, because agents are agents. I mean, they're salespeople. They get into a fight or flight moment, and when they feel like they're backed into a corner, it's what's in it for me, and that's not necessarily that's not a culture issue, because I mean I didn't lose anyone through that, right? I mean, but it's human nature. So instead of really kind of being able to talk, having the maturity of the organization and the relationship with your people to be able to talk them through some of these hard times, and really kind of let them know, hey, we kind of need an all hands on deck moment here. We kicked them a little bit of compensation across the board to help with the transition. We gave their files back while we focused on finding and placing talented people in each one of those positions, and we had each one of those positions filled. And to be honest with you, now that we look at it, we probably got a talent upgrade, to be honest with you.
Awesome. That's awesome. So it's kind of interesting, as I talk to many leaders like yourself throughout the country, they would attribute a hire or two that has been extremely key in the early stages. They really didn't have much idea, but they just happened to get lucky, so to speak, right? And it sounds like that's one of the comments that you made very early on, that your right-hand person is just somebody that's indispensable, right?
So true. Yeah, it's so true.
So you had indicated, you had made a statement, I think it was last week when we just connected briefly, that finding, acquiring, and retaining talent is perhaps the single most important variable to not only current success but also long-term success. You mind commenting on that just a bit? Well,
I'm in Nebraska. I'm gonna give a plug here. I'm a Nebraska Cornhusker fan. I mean, I bleed red. You grew up in Nebraska, and I mean, the sun rises and sets over Memorial Stadium, in our opinion. But Nebraska is, to quote Colin Cowherd, Nebraska is it's an asker, or it's a convincer school. I have to convince you to come to the cornfields of Nebraska and play for us, whereas like Texas is an asker school. It's, Texas could go in their backyard and they've got 100 blue chip players right there within 100 miles. So so I think that to use the sports analogy, you got to field the best team. Especially in a team environment. I mean, it really does come down to picking the best team members. It's not always top agents within the marketplace. I mean, I think that we've really hit it out of the ballpark by looking outside of the status quo, outside of the board of realtors that we're practicing here. We were bringing people from, there are, when you put together a great business model and you can kind of show them what's possible in real estate, medical device, pharmaceutical, insurance. We hit a home run with a 24-year insurance veteran. There's other industries out there, sales industries, that just don't know that real estate can be like this, because I think when everyone's perception of real estate is it's kind of something that part-timers do. Anyone could go get it's a low barrier of entry industry. There's not a lot of respect for the industry, I feel. So when you can kind of offer that environment, that entrepreneurial feel yet a business model. Some people are working in a professional environment and growing something larger than themselves. You'd be surprised the type of talent that you can recruit.
So you and I were kind of very intentional when we first spoke about 2 years ago that there's a tremendous amount of talent out there. We just don't know how to find them, where to go to get them, and most important of all, how to identify them, right?
Right.
So it's kind of interesting that you would make the concept, and I don't know that we've talked about this really succinctly, that your infrastructure and the quality of your support people being so instrumental to the well-being, I guess, of your agents, who typically are your fight or flight kind of people. They are very demanding. They're not good with paperwork, so that means they rely on admin that much the more.
That's right.
Would you kind of just describe in your own words how in 90 days you were up and running at basically full capacity with your new hires? How were you able to do that? And this is the first time I've actually heard you say that we've actually up-leveled and perhaps even have better talent than what you had prior.
Yeah, well, I think you include them in the process. You explain, I mean, our salespeople were just, I mean, no ifs, ands, or buts. It affected our production this year. I mean, it's tough to do, and when you, I think commiserating with them and letting them know, hey, listen, I'm taking a hit, you're taking a hit, we're all taking a hit, but we can kind of complain about it, or we can rise up and power through, kind of embrace this moment and make something great come out of this, and I think that's what you need. I think great leadership. I think that you need to be doing that every time there's adversity. You should relish in some of those chances to rise up and come out better than what you were before that adversity. So. You don't want to have a lot of adversity all the time, but I mean, you get what I'm saying.
Sure.
And then, it was just focus on, we just identified that like the most important thing was onboard these people, and we gave we promoted my long-term assistant, my first hire ever, team member #1. We promoted her to being a chief of staff position, and she really just, put them through boot camp training for a good 3 weeks, and that's all they did was just train. The entire company was involved with that. Another thing that we had a paradigm shift here as well, because we were getting bigger, and for some reason there was a disconnect in our see, what was really difficult here is our transaction process chews us up. I mean, I'm looking at my deal we call it the DFT report. I got deals that fall through. I've had 86 fall through this year, and it's just a killer. It's a time waster. It's a money waster. I mean, there's a lot of commission dollars are left on the table, and some of the the majority of those issues were negotiating repairs. I mean, it's just. There's a lot of there's some pluses and minuses to be in a market where it's not heavily regulated. We don't have a lot of codes. You could be outside the state limits and build whatever you want. So, but it really is catastrophic when navigating the transaction process. So we've got to be that much better. I think what happened was. We sat down, we brainstormed with some of the top producers in the company and just said, listen, why is it that when we were smaller, we had less of these deals fall through? Why is it that when we were smaller, it seemed like we were more cohesive? Because as you grow, the last thing you want is dilution of culture. I think it's the biggest threat to any organization. So what we did, and this was one of my long-term buyer agents actually came up with the concept. She said, well, why don't we break up into sub-teams? So we divided the company into 3 teams. And instead of having 18 people do one-on-one file reviews with all the escrow coordinators, which if you add it up, it's just too much time. It's not very efficient. We created these 3 sub teams, and we gave them a deadline to come up with a name. It had to be a funny name. They needed to have a team song, and I think a team a team mascot or something like that. So we made it fun. So. You got the 3 teams, and now those sub-teams meet 3 times a week for 1 hour, and it's highly structured. And we rank ordered them. We kind of looked at the crew mix on each team, and we got a listing partner, and a top listing partner, a top buyer agent, and then you've got these younger the new agents that are coming up through. So they're able to kind of see this top producer who's carrying 15, 20 files through escrow. They're kind of able to watch and listen to some of the challenges they're going through. And there's literally, in the Army we called it hip pocket training. There's like on-the-spot training happening right there in a 1 hour time block. And it really just, it was so impactful. That's probably one of the best things to come out of that rehiring, reshuffling process was just, we just really need to look at how we were conducting business and how we can do it better.
Awesome. Terrific. So that inclusiveness, the leadership style, the actually like somebody on your staff. Wes, would you mind elaborating a little bit in terms of your own leadership style? You don't have 20+ market share for 6 consecutive years and do over 500 units in the top 35 in the entire United States by accident. That's a significant amount of consistency. You've had a lot of interruptions, right, and a lot of kind of things that have caused some instability, but you're going to even achieve what you achieved last year. So talk to me about cultures are best constructed by intentional design as opposed to letting them happen, right, by happenstance. Right. So tell me a little bit about your thoughts around leadership, around culture, around your example. Who are you? What makes you tick? Why is it you've been able to? What's been the secret to your success, would you say?
Well, I think it goes with wearing. I think you should. I think your core. It starts with your core values. I believe. I think you hire to their core values, and then you wear those core values on your sleeve. We have them printed up on our wall. If you haven't seen photos of our office, we got the big red wall, and we recite them all the time. We talk about them all the time. We do leadership spotlights, to start before any meeting. It's just a quick, hey, who was a leader today or yesterday? Just give a quick, just share about a leadership moment. And really, 5 dysfunctions of a team is something that we work on all the time. I'm sure if you haven't incorporated that as part of your hiring process and your training, your ongoing training process, you should. It's a fantastic tool, I believe, and I don't think you could talk about it enough per se. But I think really identifying, I've been very, I was in the Army. I was a military officer. There was a different leadership style. We were brought up much tougher. It's a different environment. Getting out transitioning from the military to the civilian world, there's a lot of things that we did in the military that's just not going to work in the civilian world. I can't make people do push-ups, when they don't do something. So you have to come up with another. Hey, we used to. It was kind of funny. Whatever. I'll do push-ups every once in a while, but it's. I used to be this hard-charging, militaristic guy. It was just intense, and the fact of the matter is, it's too intense for the civilian world. And so for me as a leader, I really had to learn how to motivate my people through other means. The stick method that we used all the time in the military just was not going to work. I wasn't a screamer or a yeller in the Army per se, but the level of discipline is just different than and accountability than when you get in the civilian world. Sure. If I say I'm going to do something, I do it. There isn't like I kind of sort of think I'm going to do it or anything like that. It's very matter of fact. And I think how do I draw that type of accountability out of folks, but yet it's not so uncomfortable that you leave people in your wake. So I think really figuring out what behaviors do I want to produce a specific result. So if there's like if I want them to get, let's just say Zillow reviews, if that's our focus for this quarter, I want to get a lot of Zillow reviews. Well, I got to figure out, what behaviors do I need to have happen to get that result? And then how do I incentivize these people to do that behavior that I know is going to produce this result? So I think you just need to kind of look at that and it's worked every time we've kind of taken that type of approach. It's worked. The other thing that I did was I fired myself as the sales manager because I'm not the best person to lead the sales team. You helped me hire and find a fantastic sales manager who is just rocking it. He's doing great, and they respond to him. I think there's a thing where when the leader gets to a certain point, they go, well, it's just Wes. It's just whatever. He can do all this stuff. He knows all the scripts. It's also intimidating to do role playing with me if they're not comfortable there's just, on the daily grind, on the daily accountability, I'm not the right person to be holding them accountable. And Greg has just been that guy for us, and he's been an invaluable addition to our team.
Fantastic. What's a little bit of his background?
What was that?
What was his background? He didn't have real estate experience prior.
No, he actually moved up here from Atlanta, Georgia, and he he worked in human resources at Enterprise Rent-A-Car. So, and if you don't know anything about Enterprise, they train their people extremely well. So, I mean, what was he doing? He was recruiting, hiring, and training top talent for Enterprise. And again, like a blessing, I get this guy comes to Fairbanks, Alaska. So it's been great, and thanks to you, I mean, in the assessment, it was one of those. This guy's it. It's top. We hired him almost on the spot. It's amazing.
Right. Excellent. Let's talk about by contract. When we first got started at the very beginning, there was a lady in particular who took the assessment, and evidently somebody must have given her the wrong link. Because, what it was is I thought that she was somebody that was being considered for hire, but what I didn't know is that she had already been hired. She'd already been through all the interviewing process, and you'd already made the decision to hire her, but and the assessment was kind of given to her after she had started. But I thought, right, my mistake, that it was somebody that was being considered for hire. So tell me what happened. I don't know if you remember the situation with that one individual.
Oh yeah. No, we were at that process where we had made the offer to join the we went through our hiring process that we had at the time, using the tools that we had. We hired you, we implemented your tools, and one of the first things we did was we assessed everybody on the team. She was the newest member of the team, and I had some doubts, but I didn't really know what the doubts were per se. I mean, she presented herself really well. And you looked at the assessment and you're like, no, if this passed, B player, don't even think about it. And I go, shoot, I already gave her, I felt I couldn't go back on the offer I made her because we had already started onboarding. And sure enough, I mean, she was in the business for 90 days, and she was a 90-day washout. So and I didn't. And we gave it everything we could to make her successful, but it just wasn't the right fit. You saw it. That chewed up company resources. I'm sure there were leads that went to her that didn't get converted, that would have been converted by some of our other people. And so I mean, what's the total cost? Well, it compounds and it's huge. So had we have hired you before then, we wouldn't have made that mistake. But and you know what? And the thing is, at the end of the day, I don't want to be putting. It's really about the person. It's strength finding, like you say. I'm looking for the right people on the bus, and it's not that you're just because we don't have the right seat on the bus for you doesn't mean you're a bad person or you're not worthy. It's just it's not the right environment for you. I said and I think you should be able to say no to somebody who wants to join your team, and they should walk away going, wow, those I would refer my friends and family to use these people because of the way they let me down, because of the way they explained to me why maybe I wasn't the right fit for this position. And it's not about, hey, I don't like you. It's, hey, I love you, but it's not the right, this isn't the right fit for you, and here's why. And when you can explain that, I think that's huge. So that's another thing I don't think we talk about a whole lot, but that's another benefit of your tool, your teachings, and what you've taught me.
Well, you're absolutely right. I think most companies do a terrible job. It's a reputation, right? It's a very small world. So even people who take the assessment and the scores don't line up, they should be sent a very nice email just out of courtesy and respect to let them know, yes, thank you for applying, right? Thank you for taking out your valuable time to do this, and just as you say, let them down kindly and nicely, and let them know that the position that you have is not a good fit for them right now. And sometimes oftentimes that's not something that's done very well.
Right.
Well, let me ask you, what type of confidence or a benefit or value has the screening process been So no one on your staff even sits down with and meets someone face to face, or even calls and talks to anybody and wastes any of that valuable time unless they're vetted, and unless we know that their profile results, which is very comprehensive, really matches the specific role or position that they're specifically applying for. What's been your experience? What would you say about, I guess, the value or benefits to you and your organization?
Well, time, like you said, I mean, I think we're able to cull through a lot more 10 times as many applicants as we used to be able to, just because of the tool, the assessment tool. And don't spend more time than you need to on somebody who's not the right fit. I mean, have a great letdown letter, let them know thanks but no thanks. The other thing too is, there's times where someone maybe apply for like a sales position, but the profile comes in, you go, hey Wes, this is a great admin person, and you may look at them and say, you know what, we could actually use an admin person over here. You might find, so it's just identifying, you're really finding the right pieces for the puzzle, so to speak. And I think that the process needs to be comprehensive. It shouldn't be you. By the time they meet with me, they're extremely well vetted. I mean, I don't know that I've met. There's only been one hire. I think in the last 6 sales hires, I've only met with one person that we didn't hire, and that was only because the last step of our hiring process is a team culture interview. We do a roundtable with all the salespeople. Admin's invited too if they want to be there, but really the salespeople are, if it's a sales position, it's just, we get the sales team together, and by that time, all the basic interview questions have been vetted. We debrief them on the results of all the interviews and everything. And you'd be surprised. Give your people credit. You'd be surprised how well they do and how well they pick up on certain nuances and certain things in that environment.
Right.
And we've had them come back for a second culture interview. I mean, I stole a bunch of, and I got to thank Liz at Boomtown. She hooked me up with, I got a fishbowl with a bunch of just crazy culture questions that are, just kind of like curveballs that you can't prepare for when you come into an interview. So it really kind of gets us an inside look at, do we want this person on our team? Are they like us? Do they match our core values with the way they answer some of these, curveballs? And you just can't prep for some of these questions that you get thrown at you.
Sure. So the people that your folks are ending up meeting with kind of in the early stages, it's not a matter of if they can do the job or do they have the capabilities or the talent, but really what you're looking to try to identify, do they fit the culture of my team? Are they going to gel within the team culture, knowing that your culture is very important?
Right. Yeah. I mean, do they have a history of being accountable for their actions? Have they been a winner in the past? I love military and athletes. I was a wrestler, so like if you don't enjoy the grind of, you don't achieve success in a sport like wrestling unless you just really commit to the process, and that's kind of what you're looking for here. A great team player. I mean, you don't let your teammates down.
Right.
Anyways, I think that some of those intangibles are important with, and I'll be honest with you, one of my best hires here recently was someone who had absolutely no experience. She was never held a legit job in her life, but she was a mother of 3 kids, military spouse, and your assessment said she was a rock star, and you just kind of felt that when you talked to her. It was like, and it was really like, just unleashing just a sales machine. And she, I want to say her first year of real estate, she sold over 50 homes and challenged one of our top buyer agents for the top sales person for last year. So very impressive.
Wow.
Hey Wes, you mentioned that being in Alaska you have kind of a retention problem, and I was wondering, what about John's processes maybe helped you identify people who might be prone to stability so they're not, going off to the beach like you said after 6 months?
Yeah, well, he's identified some people that he says, this person's a flight risk. In fact, when we did our team assessment, you identified a couple flight risks, and guess what? Those were two of the people that are no longer with us and are outside the state of Alaska. So there you go. So yeah, the insight that he can pick out of those assessments, great. You know, even in the interview process, I think when you identify someone, hey, they're really not happy where they're at, they're a flight risk at their current job or current situation, that leads me into really talking. That gives me a heads up that I know when I go into the interview, I'm going to really pin them down on what's their long-term plan here. Where do they see themselves in 5 years here? And if it's, hey, I want to be on the beaches of Florida, you know, I'm probably not going to invest a whole lot into that person. So yeah, that's a good question.
Or best, Wes, even building on that, we know that they're unhappy and that they're looking because the assessment tells us so. And again, it's about 90% accurate or higher. I think I've done over 70 teams thus far, and I've only had one team, and it's because they were only small. They had 6 people. There wasn't one person on that one team that was, you know, a flight risk. Every other team, 69 other teams, all had people that had one foot out the door for one reason or another. But if you know this, then it's a great opportunity for the person that's doing the interviewing to say, hey, and it shocks the people. You know, hey, there's some of your results from your profiles indicated that something's not right with your current environment. Would you mind elaborating why you're looking to make a change? Okay, now that's a question that virtually never gets asked.
Yeah.
Now, because it never gets asked, it takes them by surprise. And it's very interesting to hear what kind of responses you get. Well, my boss is a jerk, right? Or, you know what I mean? So right. It allows them an opportunity to articulate, you know, exactly, I guess, why they're unhappy and why it is that they're looking to make a change and what it is that they would prefer in terms of their environment or their culture. So it does certainly open up a whole lot of things. Or here's another one. Our assessment will also tell you if the person has some self-esteem or self-concept issues. So oftentimes, you know, I'll instruct Wes to ask this question. You know, there's something in your past that's really caused you to be looking in the rearview mirror or has really caused your self-confidence to really tank. Would you mind letting me know what that is? See, it's an open-ended question. Yep. It's not a matter of me saying, I think that might be the case. You're saying, would you mind letting me know what that is? So then that person has the opportunity, and most of the time people will be candid. Well, I just went through a nasty divorce that I'm trying to recover from, or whatever it might be. But look, as the employer, I believe that you have the right and the obligation to know the full picture of who the person is in terms of where they are in their life stage and what they're going through, because guess what? Those things impact a person's performance.
Absolutely.
So again, it just kind of gives you a depth of insight. Wes, talk to me a little bit about how connected you are with the community and how important it is for you to be visible and kind of the image and reputation that you have built in your community and kind of how that really helps to differentiate you, protect your brand, because you're kind of the 800-pound gorilla that everyone's kind of nipping at.
Yeah, it was, you know, when our first year of existence for our company, we hit 20% market share. So it was like coming out and really taking everybody by surprise. I quickly became like everyone's favorite realtor to do a deal with, to public enemy #1. I think we set a record for, I don't know, complaints at the real estate commission or something that first year, because it was just, you know, no one knew what we were doing or how we did it. They just knew that they didn't like us and they were going to do whatever they could to stymie whatever we were looking to do. And, you know, I was always looking at like, I'm a nice guy. I don't know, what's the deal? I'm like, you know, I'm the best guy to do a deal with because I'm probably going to, you know, I'm easy to negotiate with. You know, we're always very solution based. I mean, I didn't really get it. You know, I mean, philanthropy had always been a big part of my life growing up, and you know, and in the military, I want to serve, and that's what really fuels me. To be honest with you, I mean, I run a successful business, so I can give, and it was apparent that not all of the public really knew that about me, so I felt that was important that they needed to know really who the real Wes Madden was, and also who these wonderful people that also share in those values. They need to know what our people are about. So so it was a tough thing for us to do, to take what you do, your philanthropic efforts, and then publicize them per se. And I'm not advocating to like over publicize them, but just just make it visible to bring awareness to some of the things you're doing. And I don't think it's, don't make it about being self-serving, but more of being an advocate for that cause, right? You should champion causes that I feel are that you care about, that strike a chord with you and your team. And it's something that we discuss at our business planning when we do our team advance next month. We'll actually sit down and say, hey, where do we want to give our time and money? Because there's two types of donating, your time and money, and your time is a big one. So I think getting out in the community sees us as being those advocates for keeping dollars local. We give back to we say thank you to people when they agree to pay what we charge, and they say, well, why are you saying thank you? It's like, well, I mean, just know that 10% of this is going to go right back in the community. It's going to, I mean, we have to sponsor, and maybe it's a Fairbanks thing, I don't know, but our kids don't get to go play soccer, football, or go on an academic, trip to Europe or something without. I mean, it's expensive to get out of here and go do some of those things. Even just playing football, you got to play Barrow, and then you got to go down to Anchorage, and then you got to go to Juneau. I mean, there's plane tickets involved. It's expensive. So, so it costs a lot for these kids, and there's a lot of need everywhere, I think, and so be that champion. And I would also recommend that everyone lean forward and get involved with some of the boards on some of the nonprofits and charities within your local community. Your business acumen, your marketing acumen, it is invaluable. You spend 1 hour a month giving just your time and your expertise to some of these organizations. I mean, that's where you really earn the street credit of your community. And these are the people that they have a choice, and give them you want to be labeled as the company that does things right. And someone asked me, well, how do you know if you're doing it right? And I said, I told them a story. I walked into a local restaurant, and there was the greeter was there, and she said, Wes, and she grabbed me by both arms, and she said, and I don't even know her name, to be honest with you, but I'd never met her, but she grabbed me like she knew me, and she said, I need to tell you a story. She said, the other day there were 3 realtors in here, and they were talking bad about you, and I couldn't believe some of the things they were saying. I couldn't handle any more, so I went over there and I told them, I said, Wes Madden's got more character than all 3 of you combined. You should be ashamed of yourself. And she scolded them in public. And I mean, and that's so because she knew what we were about. She knows what our company, what our mission is here, and it's not about taking over the town, making a ton of money. We're not millionaires, it's just we're just working hard and looking to give back. So it's really helped on the PR side. It's made what we do enjoyable, and I think everybody should be doing it. So
again, getting back to the comment that we made in the beginning around having a sense of connection with a cause, with a deeper purpose, right?
Right.
The community, giving back, and so forth. I'm interested to hear, and I've not asked you this question before. As a business leader and as someone that has been so successful and that has a lot of that leadership hardwired from some of your prior experiences, what would you say would be maybe 3 or 4 or 5 of the top most important things that a business owner should be focusing on, specifically real estate, as it relates to building a thriving firm? Completely open-ended, I realize. Anything from leads to the right people to talent to infrastructure to whatever it is, culture, etc., accountability, everything. I'm just going to allow you to think about that for a moment. As with all your experience, what would you say are the 3 or 4 driving forces behind a consistent performing team?
Yeah, I think recruiting and retention. Maybe that's one thing. Maybe that's 2 things. I think it's it kind of goes together, because I think if you've got, I think before we really started our growth phase, like I told you, I didn't even have a job application out there. People were just attracted to us, and they said, you guys are different. I see it. It was palpable. It was, they could see it in our people. Our people were always happy when they're out there. They wore their Madden jackets, everywhere, and they're like, your people all just walk very confident. They speak well. They walk with a purpose, and we just look and acted and talk different. So I think recruiting and retaining talent, accountability, I think is a big part. I mean, you've got to establish a culture of accountability. Every time, I mean, run your, it's the little things. The little things are the big things. Don't if you've got someone steps over, you want your people when they're coming in the parking lot to not step over that gum wrapper on the parking lot. They stop, pick it up, they do the right thing, and even when no one's watching. And they're only going to do that if you notice and highlight the people that do it, and then they start picking up. And they say, this is what right looks like. This is what the Madden way is. This is what we do the right thing, and you got to make things become a big deal if you make it a big deal. So your job as a leader to make those things, even as small as they are, make them into big things and explain why they're big things. So don't miss those opportunities. And then obviously, sales KPIs. You need to be on track. You need, have a goal, have a plan. I mean, our job as leaders, everyone gets into real estate. They go, well, I want to sell 100 houses. I want to make $100,000. Everyone has these lofty goals, but they don't have an action plan to get there. Backwards plan. Show them how to plan. Show them how this is a numbers game, and that the opportunity that we provide them is the leads are taken care of. The one thing you need to do is put forth the effort, and use the things that we teach you, and really hold them accountable to their plan. Not because you want them to succeed, but because they have given you permission to hold them accountable for the goals that they need to achieve. And we actually don't use the word goals anymore. It's our need number. So we kept saying, like, hey, what's your goal for next year? Because we do like goal, stretch goal, and dream goal. But really, this last team advance, we said, listen, what's your need number? Because people they kept missing the number. It's like, this is the number that you need to fund your IRA, pay the mortgage payment, cover, pay off, pay the car payment, whatever. What is that number? Really get real with what that number is. And this is the number that anybody on that team could hold you accountable at any time to making that number. It's just failure is not an option. We must hit this number across the board. And that just really established, that just kind of changed the way we look at goal setting. So I think really establish that, and then really hold them accountable to that, because it's not about you, it's about them, and that's what it should be about.
Wow. Wes, you provided a significant amount of gems and some really good insight. It's inspiring to talk to you. Thank you for being a guest. I love your energy. I love your leadership. I love when I did all the one-on-ones with your people, how they speak well of you. I love how oftentimes you want more for your people than what they want.
Sometimes.
I remember hearing that from you, back about a year ago. Sometimes that can be frustrating because a person is more of an average person and they don't really have, high aspirations. They're not wired and driven like you're driven. But you expect the best of people. You hold people accountable. You consistently have the right messaging. You're always propping up someone's good behavior in terms of, the leadership spotlight of what it is they did and why it is important and why it supports the culture. So those are just a few of the many things that that you've talked about in this last 45 minutes. So any advice, guidance, recommendations that you would give people, because we've talked about how recruiting and retention is so critically important. I think the culture that you build really helps with the retention. There's no question about that. But so many people are struggling. They throw their hands up and they say, I've tried everything I possibly can. 90% of the time, all the time and money I try to invest in hiring and growing my team ends up being flushed down the drain. What would your advice or guidance be to your peers that are in that, living that right now? They're in pain.
Well, I think I think you need to get out and shadow other folks who are who do have that culture going, that the business is going well for them. See the environment that they've created in that organization, and then ask yourself, am I the best person to create or replicate that type of environment, or do I need to find somebody who can be that person? And a lot of times, I think the fault that I see in real estate, a lot of times everyone says, well, I need to be the CEO of my team. Listen, I am in the hunt right now to look for somebody who's better at me at doing this job of being CEO of Madden Real Estate. And I think you should always be looking. I think you should always have that maturity to be able to say, you know what, I may not be the best person to do this. Whether it's my Greg with the sales manager position, I mean, I think you should constantly be looking at how I can surround myself with people who are smarter and more talented than me. And I think if you hire to the core values that you want for your company, I think you're going to see that culture. That culture, what you believe to be a culture challenge, will start taking care of itself. But you need to take that first step and identify your own strengths.
That's awesome advice. You know, to that point, I hadn't planned on asking you that question, but another client of mine just happened to mention when I was talking to them that they were headed up to visit you, and I understand that you had 2 people that came to just basically to do exactly that, to shadow you, to pick your brain, to see your operation, and you basically day in and day out doing your thing. What out of curiosity do you get out of that? Because obviously that's huge for you to invest back in these people who aspire to kind of be at the level that you're at.
Yeah, I think I think you can learn from anybody that you. I mean, these guys. It was Chip Glennon and Ryan Smith came up, and we had a fantastic. And these are 2 sharp business leaders. They're in a they had come up to see how we ran our business, but I think I think I was really kind of asking them a lot of questions as well. It's a great time to bounce. Anytime you can brainstorm with other talented people, just because sometimes as you grow, you forget about some of the great things that were important to you when you were smaller. And it's great to kind of almost go back in time a little bit and hear their perspective, because you can pull some nuggets out of that as well. And oh man, you know what? Yeah, we forgot to do that because we just got so big. We left that piece maybe by the wayside. Let's reincorporate that back into our process or something like that. So yeah, it goes both ways. I probably got more out of them than they got out of me, to be honest with you.
That's awesome. So always the student, right? Always the person that's learning. So here's a guy that's giving away some of his time, and of course, credit to these other 2 individuals that made the investment of both time and resources to come up, because that's not an easy trip to make, as you know. So that's awesome. Excellent. All learning about best practices and kind of how you can do things, in the most effective manner. Well, Wes, it's always a pleasure. Thank you so much for being a great guest today. I'm sure that a lot of the people that are going to watch this recording afterwards are going to get a lot out of it. So thank you very much. It's very easy to see why you've been so successful, and you're always pushing the envelope, and you're doing the right things. So I know even bigger things are in store for you, which is exciting.
Yes, sir.
All right. Thanks again, Wes.
Thanks for all your help, John.
My pleasure.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, take care now.